They say when you go missing, someone files a report. I guess no one noticed when I disappeared. Not even me. I remember the moment I found it. A plain government page, no photos, no color, no emotion. Just one cold line, stamped in a system that never lies. Subject, Ava Holloway. Status, missing, presumed deceased. I stared at the screen for a long time, and I thought, how the hell can someone be missing while standing right in front of themselves? Let me take you back, because no one goes missing overnight. Disappearance happens slowly, one compromise at a time. My name, or at least the name I've been living with, is Ava. I'm 31. I live in a quiet town where neighbors smile, lawns stay mowed, and secrets don't speak unless they're drunk. 3 years ago, I married a cop, Ben Holloway. Respected, clean record, said all the right things, wore a badge like it was part of his skin. He was the kind of man towns like this love. Disciplined, polite, always in control. He brought casserole to funerals. He checked on widows during snowstorms, and he loved me, or said he did, in that perfect way that makes people jealous. At first, it was the little things. He made breakfast, brought home groceries, warmed the car in winter. People said I was lucky. I said I felt safe. But there's a difference between safety and silence. He didn't like social media, didn't trust it, said it fed insecurity. He'd ask me to delete photos, even ones from before we met. Why do you need memories that don't include me? He smiled when he said it, and I laughed like it was love. I stopped calling friends, not because he told me to, just because it got awkward. They'd ask questions I didn't feel like answering, and he always said they didn't understand what we had. So I let go. I didn't notice the house getting quieter. Didn't notice I didn't drive anymore unless he was with me. Didn't notice I hadn't bought clothes in over a year. Didn't notice I never saw my own mail. Because when you slowly erase yourself, you don't see the gaps. You just learn to walk around them. The day it cracked started ordinary. He was at work. I was home. The sunlight hit the floor just right, warm and soft like a memory you don't trust. I was cleaning a drawer and found an old folder, my old resume. An address I didn't recognize, a name I hadn't written in years, Ava Sinclair. It didn't feel like me. It didn't feel like anything. I got curious, searched my name, the one on my driver's license, Ava Holloway. Nothing. No social security history, no credit record, no college transcripts, no marriage license, just digital dust. And then I searched Ava Sinclair. It popped up like a ghost screaming through the code. Missing person case, filed, 8 years ago. Status, open, presumed deceased. Photo attached. My face. Not a version of me. Not someone who looked like me. Me. I thought it was a prank, a glitch, a scam, but it was filed by a real department. It had my birthday, my height, my scars. It even mentioned the necklace I was wearing when I met Ben, and that's when the silence in my house started screaming. I don't remember much after that, just that I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't move, because you don't scream when you realize your life might be a performance. You just wait for the curtain to drop. The front door creaked open at 6:12 p.m. Ben came home with Chinese food and a kiss on the cheek. He said, "You look tired." I smiled and said, "Yeah, I think I'm just coming down with something." I was coming down with the truth, and it was just beginning to burn. It's a strange thing to sit across from someone you love and wonder if they're the one who made you disappear. Ben sat there that night, chewing his food, telling me about a traffic stop. Meanwhile, I was trying to remember how I even met him. I couldn't eat, but I smiled, laughed in the right places, pretended I was still his wife, while wondering if I'd ever been. Every detail of our life, the couch, the plates, the photos on the mantle, suddenly felt staged, like a set, like props in someone else's show. And I didn't know if I was the actress or the hostage. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed beside him, listening to the rhythm of his breath, and wondering if he knew that I knew. He held me in his arms like nothing had changed, but something had. Me. Something had snapped, not in panic, but in awareness. A deep, dark stillness. The kind of stillness that only comes when the person lying next to you might be the reason your name is on a goddamn missing persons report. The next morning, I pretended to run errands. I drove 40 miles out of town, found a library with an old public records terminal, the kind no one uses anymore, and I started digging. The case file said I was last seen at a women's shelter. No emergency contact, no family listed. It said my real name was Ava Sinclair, and that I'd disappeared the night after I checked in. No phone records, no financial trail, just a note. Staff reports a man had visited the premises multiple times. Fit, mid-30s, law enforcement demeanor, unknown ID, possible connection to disappearance. I looked at that line for a long time, and I felt it in my bones. Ben had found me before I became Ava Holloway, before the French toast and Sunday mornings, before the flowers, before the badge. And now the question wasn't, how did this happen? It was, how long had he been looking for me? I drove home with trembling hands. My stomach churned with something worse than fear. It was the sick, surreal ache of knowing you're not crazy, you're trapped. The man who held me when I had nightmares was the reason I had them. That evening, he noticed I was quiet. He poured me wine, rubbed my shoulders, asked if I was okay, and I lied. I said, I think I'm just tired. I watched his eyes when I said it, the way they scanned me, not lovingly, not protectively, like a man assessing damage. Later that night, I snuck into his home office. He never let me in there. I knew the password, his badge number. Inside, locked cabinets, printed maps, a burner phone, and a drawer with old Polaroids of me, before I even knew him. One photo was from outside the shelter, another from a grocery store I vaguely remember. I was in a hoodie, looking over my shoulder. He had been tracking me. I sat on the floor of that office for a long time, felt the walls close in like a coffin, felt my breath shallow, felt like I was a story someone else had been writing, and I'd only just started reading. I wasn't Ava Holloway. I was someone who disappeared, someone had hunted, someone he had found, rebranded, rewritten, then married, and no one ever questioned it. There are moments that split your life in two, before you knew and after. Before was soft, after is sharp, and I had just crossed over. That night, I stood in our kitchen and watched Ben sleep in his chair, head tilted back, badge still clipped to his belt, half a beer on the table, and all I could think was, how do you leave someone who already erased you once? Because this wasn't just about packing a bag. This wasn't about sneaking out a back door. This was about taking back a name, a life, a self, and doing it under the eyes of a man trained to notice everything. I didn't sleep that night, not because I couldn't, but because I knew it might be the last night I ever spent in that house, and I wanted to memorize every creak in the floorboards. I started planning my escape like a soldier preps for war, quiet, patient, detail by agonizing detail. Step 1, rebuild my trail. I searched for shelters from 8 years ago, scanned old web archives, found a contact. They didn't remember me at first, but I gave them the photo from the police report. Their silence was my answer. A woman on the phone, her name was Sharon. She whispered, "We always wondered what happened to you. We thought he found you." I said nothing. She said, "Do you want your name back?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Yes, more than anything." She said, "Get out without him noticing." It wasn't as simple as leaving. Ben had cameras, motion sensors. He even locked the garage from his phone, so I waited. For 3 full weeks, I played the part of a loving wife. I made his coffee, I laughed at his jokes, I sat through his stories, and every night I'd cry in the shower so quietly the water wouldn't notice. I hid cash in tampon boxes, taped a burner phone under the toilet tank, stored a spare set of clothes in a Ziploc bag in the neighbor's trash can. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I didn't exist. Then, one night, it came. He came home later than usual, had dirt on his boots, said something about helping at a scene, but I noticed something. His mood. It was off, colder, detached, like a man who'd made a decision and was waiting for the right moment to carry it out. That night, I couldn't sleep, neither could he. He paced, checked his phone, washed the same mug 3 times, and then, out of nowhere, he asked, "You happy, Ava?" I nodded. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Good," he said. "I worry sometimes. You get so quiet." Then he leaned in, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "It's easy to disappear in a town like this." That was it. The signal. The moment. I didn't wait. At 3:12 a.m., I crept downstairs, shoes already hidden outside, bag zipped under the porch. I disarmed the sensor using his old phone, the one he thought I hadn't found, and I ran. Not like in the movies. No tears, no dramatic music. Just panic. Just survival. Just breath. I ran through 3 blocks of sleeping houses, past the diner where he first asked me out, past the church we never went to. I ducked behind the post office and texted Sharon. She'd arranged a contact. 10 minutes later, a blue sedan pulled up. Woman in her 50s, said her name was Mary. I got in, didn't look back, and I felt it. For the first time in almost a decade, my name sliding back into my skin like it belonged there. Ava Sinclair, not missing, not dead, not his, but it wasn't over. Because monsters don't let go quietly, especially ones with a badge. Hey, before I tell you what happened next, I want to pause. I don't know if you've ever felt trapped in something that used to feel like love. Maybe you've smiled through a dinner you didn't want to be at, answered, "I'm fine," when your heart was unraveling. Maybe you've tried to convince yourself that silence was safety, that control was care. If you have, this part is for you. And I want you to hear this clearly. You are not crazy, and you are not alone. What she does next is not survival. It's resurrection. I had been gone for 5 hours. We'd driven through 3 towns, phones off, windows down. I still hadn't spoken a word. Mary, the woman who picked me up, just kept saying, "We've done this before. You're safe. You're safe." But safe is a word that loses meaning when you've slept beside a man who erased your past. We stopped at a safe house, small cabin, dusty couch, heavy locks. Sharon was waiting. I was supposed to stay hidden, let the legal team file the identity recovery paperwork. But the thing about hiding is, you start to feel like the ghost they said you were. So I left. 2 days later, I drove back to my old town. Parked 3 blocks away. Sunglasses, hoodie, rental car. Not because I wanted revenge, because I needed proof. I went back to the house, waited until I saw him leave. His patrol cruiser still looked spotless, his uniform perfect. He still looked like the man people trusted. I slipped inside with the spare key I'd hidden in the planter years ago. My hand shook so hard I dropped it twice. I didn't expect what I found. The home office, empty. No files, no burner phone, no Polaroids. Everything was gone, except for one thing, a manila envelope sitting in the center of the kitchen table, my name written on it, Ava. Inside, a wedding photo of us, burned at the edges. A note, "You weren't supposed to remember," and a USB drive. I shouldn't have watched it, but I did. The video was surveillance footage of me, from years ago, from before I met him. Me leaving the women's shelter, me in a parking lot, crying, me at a payphone, and then me getting into a stranger's car, his car, Ben. He'd found me before I even knew his name, before the accidental meeting, before the coffee shop, before he was my husband. He had been hunting me. I ran out of the house, nearly threw up in the driveway. I called Sharon, told her everything, told her I had proof. She told me to get out now, but it was too late. A cruiser pulled up behind my rental. No sirens, just the quiet crunch of tires on gravel. Ben stepped out, no gun drawn, just calm eyes. That half smile he wore like armor. "You forgot something," he said, holding up my old necklace. I froze. My body stopped listening to me. "You shouldn't have come back, Ava. Now I have to clean this up." But he didn't touch me. He didn't threaten. He just looked tired. And that's what scared me most. Because when a man like him gets tired, someone disappears. I whispered, "I know who I am now." And he said, "So do I. That's the problem." I dropped the USB on the ground and ran, sprinted, didn't look back. He didn't follow. Later that night, I uploaded everything to the police, to the press, to Sharon, to strangers on the internet, and the story caught fire. He was arrested within 48 hours, not for kidnapping, but for obstruction, falsifying records, and abuse of authority. Not enough, but enough to start. Not all victories are loud. Some arrive quietly in the silence after fear, in the way you finally sleep through the night, in the way your breath finally sinks all the way into your chest and stays there. Ben Holloway was arrested on a Wednesday, the same day the last leaf fell from the oak tree in our yard. And somehow, that felt perfect. Because sometimes endings don't need fireworks. They just need closure. The town didn't say much. Some said I was lying. Some said they always knew something was off about him. But I didn't need them to believe me. I just needed to stop disappearing. The court process was long. His lawyers dragged it out, tried to spin it as mental illness, as trauma, as a misunderstood love. But the evidence spoke, the photos, the timeline, the USB, my words. And this time, I didn't flinch when I spoke. I told them how I had woken up inside a life I didn't remember choosing, how love was used like a leash, how safety was weaponized. I told them how many nights I'd stared at the ceiling, wondering if I even existed anymore, and how I finally decided to exist, whether the world was ready or not. He was sentenced to 12 years. Not enough, never enough, but enough to end the silence. And that's what mattered. I moved to a new town, not to hide, but to breathe. I rented a small apartment above a bookstore, started using my real name again, got a dog, started writing again, and for the first time in my adult life, I could look in the mirror and recognize the girl staring back. Sometimes I still feel him, in the way I check locks twice, in the way I freeze when I hear keys in the door, in the way my body still flinches at kindness, like it has to be earned. But healing isn't a straight line. It's a heartbeat. Up, down, alive. One afternoon, months later, I was sitting on a park bench sipping coffee, and a little girl walked by, holding her mom's hand. She looked up at me and smiled, and something about that moment made me cry, because I realized I was back. Not just physically, not just legally, but fully, truly. I wasn't just the girl who went missing. I was the woman who came back stronger. If you've ever lost yourself in someone else's story, if you've ever felt like your voice was on mute, if you've ever had to smile through something that was swallowing you whole, this story was for you. Because what you went through, it mattered. It counts. And no matter how far you drifted from yourself, you can still come home. You are not a ghost. You are not a missing person. You are still here. And if you made it to the end, tell me in the comments, I'm still here, because I see you, and so do thousands of others who've been holding stories just like yours, in silence. You're not alone anymore, not here.